Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the ETSU Board of Trustees meeting. I would like to begin by welcoming our new student trustee, Mr. Trent White. Trent, congratulations, and thank you so much for generously giving of your talents, time, and service to ETSU. I know we are all looking forward to working with you. Our campus is bustling as we kick off a new academic year. This fall, we are again welcoming one of the largest incoming classes in the university's history, as well as the largest number of students to ever live on campus. Over the past 3 years, ETSU has seen nearly a 30% increase in new student enrollment, outpacing almost every other college in Tennessee. The energy these students bring is so exciting, and I'm thrilled to see more and more students recognizing the value of the ETSU experience. East Tennessee State University sits at the center of a vibrant community. It's enriched by strong partnerships throughout our region, working hand in hand with area businesses, municipalities, and nonprofit organizations. We have built a thriving art scene, developed world-class centers for research. We've strengthened the healthcare infrastructure of our region. We've created a place where anyone, regardless of where they come from, can access the life-changing opportunity higher education provides. This is an institution where as many as 40% of our students are the first in their families to attend college. Many come from modest backgrounds and challenging circumstances, yet we continue to achieve national recognition on multiple fronts and expand our impact across the region and throughout the world. As you can see, our campus infrastructure is also growing. The new academic building in the center of campus is starting to take shape. Updates to Burleson Hall are underway, and the renovation of Brown Hall is slated to begin soon. But this growth is not just confined within the boundaries of the main campus. We're getting out into our communities and we're making a difference. For example, ETSU Health recently celebrated the opening of a new infectious disease clinic in Kingsport, which will provide increased accessibility to vital services such as treatments for wound care, complex infections, and infectious diseases. As another example, we recently announced that our Military and Veterans Services Office will create a new AmeriCorps program to support the veteran population both on campus and into the surrounding 7-county area. I'm proud to be a part of the ETSU community, and it seems many others are as well. Over the summer, ETSU was named a top employer in Tennessee and one of the best employers for women in the entire nation. The experience of its employees says a lot about the culture of an organization, and I'm pleased to know we are supporting a positive, mission-focused environment. With that, I will now turn to President Nolan for a very special and very well-deserved presentation.
Well, Dr. Latimer, thank you. And as you referenced the words partner and community, I can think of few individuals who better define those two words than the individuals who I'd like to recognize and ask to come forward here in a second. But as we look across the history of the institution, it's an institution that has predicated its growth and success on partnerships. And throughout the fall, we have the opportunity to see student athletes realize their dreams on the pitch at Summers-Taylor Stadium. Many of you know that our Alumni Association and our foundation offices are located in the Mill. And when Rab and Grant came to us a number of years ago and outlined their vision for the Mill, they asked if we would be a part of it. And that vision was an opportunity to take the institution and the community and bring them together. So if the chamber is recruiting a business or industry to the region, who's there in the same building to tell our story? The Alumni Association and the foundation. But Rab and Grant brought to us about 1.5 years ago an idea that they had not on a facility side, but on a programmatic side, their vision to build out and strengthen an academic program that one person around this table knows a fair amount about. So, Grant, if I could ask you to come forward and Rab and talk a little bit about your vision and the reason for your investment in that vision.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here. So at one time we had a desire to do something for the university to strengthen something, and trying to stay within our wheelhouse of what we kind of knew, we started talking about engineering or construction tech. And really when we got into it, survey and mapping kind of came to the forefront. We know there's a dire need across the country. It's kind of like nurses, where there's just simply not enough surveyors. And ETSU has a good program, and we thought with some investment and some direction, partnering with industry, that it could be something that'd be truly distinctive. So talking with Pam and her department, and also those within the college, it's kind of morphed over time. But we truly believe this is something that'll be nationally significant. So we're very excited about it.
You have to understand, every time a piece of property is sold, there's a surveyor involved in it. Every time something is developed, a surveyor has to do it. So it's one of those businesses or services that doesn't get a lot of recognition, but it's vital to growth, to prosperity. So I think ETSU has a great opportunity to be a center of excellence in the country.
Well, I would like to ask Dr. Latimer to join me and come forward, and on behalf of the board, formally thank you for your gift and your investment. You have endowed a chair in surveying and mapping that will allow us to attract world-class talent to the institution, thereby positioning us to grow enrollment and to provide you with a pipeline of graduates for generations to come that will continue to ensure that Summers-Taylor is not only a bedrock in your industry, but a bedrock in our community. But on behalf of the board, on behalf of the faculty and staff, and on behalf of that department, thank you for your investment in ETSU, both today and in all the days that have come prior. Thank you all very much for what you do for our university.
Yes. Yeah.
I'd like to say a word too, if you don't care, because Grant and Ray, I guess you know that I'm actually a product of the surveying department here, and I just want to personally thank you all, because always there's a shortage of equipment and shortage of instruments and shortage of staff in that department, and it is something that's very much needed, as you all do. I work with surveyors every day, talked to one here at lunch today, and there's not enough in the area. So I just want to say thank you personally for what you're doing here, and as I say, I was a product of that department, and look how I turned out. Okay, maybe that's a bad example. Okay, maybe that's.
Thank you.
Very well beloved family in the region that has done so much for us all, and really happy that they were here. All right, thank you. I'll now ask Dr. Green to take the roll.
Trustee Allen. Here. Trustee Ayers. Here. Trustee DeCarlo. Trustee Steph-Furry Clark. Here. Trustee Grisham. Here. Trustee Ramsey.
Here.
Trustee Segal-Jones.
Here.
Trustee Treadway.
Here.
Trustee White.
Here.
Trustee Latimer.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Dr. Green, do we have any individuals who have signed up to speak in the board as part of the public comments portion of the agenda?
You do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll move. Trustees, you will find minutes from your May meeting in your materials. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
A second? Any questions, comments, edits, or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll have a report from the Academic Research and Success Committee, and I'll turn to Trustee Ayers for that update.
Thank you. The Academic Research and Student Success Committee met this morning to review and discuss several topics. There was one action item and 4 information items. Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Kimberly McCorkle, presented a request to approve tenure and promotion for several faculty. There were 3 faculty members who were presented for tenure upon appointment. Those were Dr. Kelly Hall, Dr. Anthony Vega, and Dr. Amy Wright. All 3 of these have significant experience at their prior institutions that support granting tenure at ETSU. There was also one request to promote Ms. Angela Shelton to Clinical Assistant Professor in the Clemmer College of Education of Human Development. These requests for tenure and promotion were supported by the faculty, the dean, the provost, and the president. And there was one correction to this, and that was a faculty file from the May meeting to correct Dr. DiGavali's rank to associate professor. Next, Provost McCorkle presented an update on the academic actions for the period of January 1 through July 31, 2024. These actions included 4 notification items to THEC related to renaming 2 programs, adding a new graduate certificate, and moving a concentration to an online delivery model. In addition to these curriculum actions that require THEC notification, Provost McCorkle presented an overview of other curriculum actions across the university. These included 5 curricular program revisions, 3 changes in education programs to align with the teacher licensure requirements in the state, and there were also 14 revisions to program policies related to admission, progression, and graduation requirements. These changes were made to ensure program quality, increase student success, meet accreditation standards, or better prepare students for the workforce. The next information item was an update on major initiatives across the Division of Academic Affairs this year. Provost McCorkle presented an update on several significant changes that were approved last year and currently underway. It included the implementation of the revision to the academic structure, the launch of the new Compass Core curriculum, and an update on new curriculum recently implemented and planned. The next item was presented by Dr. Randy Wyckoff, Dean of the College of Public Health. Dr. Wyckoff provided a detailed update on the productive research activity in the college. The college has received almost $50 million in research funding since it was initially accredited, with a real uptick over the last several years, and just this past year, over $7 million in research expenditures. He discussed the collaborative work of the 4 centers in the college that have primarily driven the growth. All the centers in the college are focused on addressing and improving health outcomes in rural areas, including East Tennessee and the region. He highlighted the impact of the College of Public Health has had on the state, university, and region, as well as the future direction of the college. Finally, Dr. Sander, ETSU's athletic director, provided a detailed update on the significant progress made by ETSU athletics since August of 2022. The update included an overview of the state of intercollegiate athletics, and I might add, it's an ever-evolving process, we all heard and had to take a big gasp, and on how recent changes impact the university. It also included an overview of changes made in the program related to budget and finance operations, with tremendous positive improvements in that area and progress towards Title IX compliance. At the conclusion of the presentations, we had discussion about the university's ongoing strategic directions and goals, and at the full board was going to be a presentation about enrollment and the Go Beyond Classroom initiative.
Thank you, Trustee Ayers. Our Finance and Administration Committee also met this morning, and I'll now turn to Trustee Ramsey for an update on his committee's work.
Thank you. I chaired a short committee meeting this morning of Finance and Administration Committee, but we accomplished a lot. In our meeting this morning, after a thorough presentation, the committee approved the ETSU Campus Master Plan. It's very exciting. The presentation walked through the short-term and long-term initiatives related to capital improvements and the implementation for the main campus, the VA campus, housing, parking, as well as academic space optimization. Very interesting. The financial update for the fourth quarter was provided as an informational item only. This update compared operating expenses and revenues from the current year to the prior year. The current report provided the comparison of the preliminary results through June 2024. A more complete presentation will be provided for the fiscal year June financial report when the audit is completed. The committee reviewed all contracts and agreements over $250,000 for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2024. The committee received an update on the current initiatives underway across the Division of Business and Finance. Details on the current work of the Oracle transition was also discussed. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Governor Ramsey. Finally, I'll turn to Trustee Stigall Jones to give us an update on her audit committee's work.
Yes, thank you. We met this morning. We had the shortest meeting. That's a good thing. And we had 2 action items. The first was to approve the audit plan for FY 2025. That the approved plan will be submitted to the Comptroller of the Treasury, the Division of State Audit. The second was the approval of the internal audit employee profiles and their salaries. We have 4 in that department. That's fully staffed at this point. We had several information items. 3 audits have been completed. One was surrounding the Center of Nursing Advancement. There were no findings from that audit. We also had a follow-up to the state audit findings, and it's been shown that there was improvement in that area and no concerns. I pointed out that it was Friday the 13th, and it wasn't too scary of a committee meeting, but we do have one area of opportunity popped up a couple of times, and that's in the area of pro cards. So if anybody's watching this and you have a pro card, get your support into the system, please. And then we also had the recommendation log status. Pro cards popped up there. It was the theme for the morning. And she gave a report on the audit functions for her department. And being an auditor myself, I'm going to point out, she would never toot her own horn, but we are not popular people most of the time. And there was a survey done on she and her staff. 23 were sent out, 16 were returned positive, none were returned negative, and had some positive comments, and that she is to be commended for that. And I appreciate, the entire committee appreciates their department and what they do. It's not always easy. She also showed us her operating expense. She reported on that, and it is very modest, and she's to be commended for how she controls those expenses in her department. That concludes our report.
Thank you, Trustee Stigall Jones. As noted in the materials in your agenda, you will find several routine items, including items acted upon during this morning's regular committee meetings that were included on the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that members would like to pull for discussion and consideration by the full board? Hearing none, I would then ask for a motion for the adoption of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we'll receive an update from Provost McCorkle and Dr. Susan McCracken on ETSU's Quality Enhancement Plan, Go Beyond the Classroom.
Good afternoon, Chair Latimer, members of the board. It is a pleasure to be with you this afternoon to provide an update on the university's progress on the Go Beyond the Classroom initiative. As a reminder to the board, the Go Beyond the Classroom initiative is what the university calls the QEP, which is a Quality Enhancement Plan. Our regional or our institutional accreditor, SAC-COC, requires the institution to adopt a plan, a 5-year plan, every 5 years that will impact student success. And as a part of developing this plan, universities are asked to pick something, an initiative, that will be successful, that fits with what the university is already good at doing, and that we demonstrate that over a 5-year time period, it somehow moves the needle in student success. And so as we developed this plan over the last couple of years, we had the opportunity to work towards what we thought would fit here, and that is to focus on community-engaged learning. So you might remember that just 2 short years ago, we were able to hire Dr. Susan McCracken, who came to us from Appalachian State University, where she had a long, significant academic experience in higher education, but who had a lot of success in working with students in a number of roles to help them achieve success. She also had the opportunity during that time to engage heavily with the community. And so we have benefited greatly from her time here. We are so lucky that she joined us. And in 2 short years, we've accomplished a lot. So we developed the QEP, which is related to community-engaged learning. There's a definition here about what community-engaged learning is. but it means what you think it does, and that is to give students learning opportunities where they go beyond the walls of the classroom and they're actively engaged in the community in a setting where we call it a reciprocal relationship, that is, the agency benefits and the university benefits. And so I'm really proud of the work that's been done so far just in the time that it has been launched. We officially received approval for the QEP in December of 2023. So SAC-COC, as we went through the process, we received full reaffirmation of our accreditation, but also approval for the QEP. So we've officially completed year 1 of the QEP. The Go Beyond the Classroom goals include these, and I won't read them all to you, but it basically requires us to put infrastructure in place for it to be successful, to expand the number of offerings that we have. Our ambitious goal is to say to every student who comes to ETSU that you will have an opportunity to have a curricular experience in the community during your time here as an undergraduate student. And I think we've made great progress in being able to do that so far. And then also from there to be able to describe the impact. So what we're required to do as we report on the success of our QEP is to show how we've actually benefited students. So at this time, I am pleased to turn over the presentation to Dr. McCracken so that she can tell you about the success of the first year of our QEP. Thank you. Green button.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Provost McCorkle, Chair Latimer, and members of the board. Thank you for having me here today, and President Nolan. I am going to give you some highlights from what we have accomplished in this past year. I'm enormously proud of the work that has been done, but more importantly, the impact that we're already seeing on students. So throughout this slideshow, I've tried to incorporate quotes from some of our faculty and from our students who benefited from these efforts this past year. So the QEP is focused on undergraduate education, but we have courses at the 1,000 level through the graduate level that have received our community engaged learning designation. You can see this past year to date, this was submitted to Dr. Green back in early August. We had 43 courses that had been designated and offered last year. We've just approved another 6, and nearly 1,000 individual unique students were enrolled in these courses last year. Overwhelmingly, what we hear from faculty, students, and our partners is very similar to what Dr. Green's quote says here, that this is hands-on learning, and it's really laying the groundwork for the future. Dr. Green had a really neat community engaged learning classroom that was at the Bristol Motor Speedway. So her students went to the Speedway once a week. They worked a lot with the Speedway Children's Charities to learn about corporate responsibility. I'd also like to share another reflection from a first-year student who worked with a RAM clinic last year, and she said in her reflection, as an aspiring healthcare professional, I think it's easy to get caught up in my personal goals and the prestige associated with career. This course made me return to the original purpose of the healthcare profession, which is serving others. I view my role as a socially responsible citizen differently now than I did before this course. Now I believe that everyone can and everyone should do what they can to impact positive change. Another area where we've had enormous success, and all of these are tied back to the goals that Provost McCorkle outlined on the second slide, is working with faculty and staff to provide a wide array of professional development opportunities. Dr. Scott Jenkinson, who I think is in the back row, is our faculty fellow. He has spearheaded these efforts. He has overseen our community engaged learning designation, and he has invested hours, hundreds of hours, and probably, I don't even know how many dozens cups of coffee and tea to meet with faculty individually to talk about the process and community engagement and help them think about how they can enhance their curriculum. We have had 98 faculty and staff be engaged in these activities, and we will have 49 plus the 6 who've just been designated this week, invited to a breakfast on October 1st to meet with the president and with Provost McCorkle. One of the really fun parts of this is being able to give and provide support to faculty who want to really enhance their classroom. We've been doing community engaged learning grants. We had 5 last year. 6 this year. You can see Dr. Michelle Freeman's quote here. She had a grant last year to work with her clinic that helps folks with complete their income taxes. But one of the ones that really stands out to me was spearheaded in the history department by Dr. Jennifer Adler, and it's called SPARK, Student Participation in Community Engaged Service, Research, and Internships. Dr. Adler received money with a colleague in the Department of History, and their SPARK students went to Nashville last spring to learn about public history and what careers were available. Of the 10 students who participated in the program, 7 of them had internships this past summer. One student found her internship during that trip to Nashville last spring, and she worked at the Nashville Parthenon. Other sites where those students ended up working were the Roan Mountain State Park, the Hands-On Discovery Center up in Gray, the brand new Johnson City Railroad experience downtown. One worked with an archaeological excavation down in South Carolina at Cumberland Island. And then one was at the Tybee Island Light Station and Museum. I think there's a lot of opportunity for our community engaged learning grants to take students, give them some experiences to then lead to internships in the community. I also want to talk about the importance of our community partners. We could not do this work if we did not have agencies and organizations who wanted to be a part of this. One of the things that I heard early on when I first came to ETSU is partners would say, I don't know where to get started. ETSU is so big. That's a great benefit for us because we have so many opportunities, but it is hard to figure out where that touch point is. So I want to recognize, I have some colleagues who are in the room, Nathan Farnor, Joy Fulkerson, who is in the back, Dr. Jenkinson I mentioned. We have graduate students who work with us. We have spent this past year really working with our partners to define and help develop an avenue that will work for them to connect with the university. And that has been through an online portal, in addition to lots of individual meetings, called ETSU Serves. Nathan has done monthly workshops with ETSU Serves with all the community partners. We have about 165, mostly nonprofits in the region who are on that platform. The topics have really focused on how to build strong relationships between community agencies and the university. One thing that we're going to do this year in February, I'm very excited about, working with the Career Services Office here on campus. We'll be doing a networking and internship event called Careers for Good. To have those agencies come to campus, talk to students about what are the career options. If I'm an accountant, most nonprofits need someone to do that work. If I do media, communications, organizations need those types of professionals. So in November of this year, with one of those lunch and learn impact lunches with our partners, we'll have Career Services come and join us, and they're going to talk to our nonprofit agencies about how to connect and start recruiting students here at ETSU. You all have probably heard about ETSU Elevates. We'll be doing that again in a few weeks, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But I think that's been another wonderful avenue for students to connect with agencies in a paraprofessional setting. Students who participate in ETSU Elevates have to develop a budget. They have to work on a program. They have to think about implementation and evaluation, all the types of things that they will do if they're a new employee with an organization. So we've had several students from 2023 who were in ETSU Elevates actually assume part-time work or internships with the sites that they worked with last year. So I did mention that I was going to tell you more about ETSU Elevates. Our co-curricular aspects of the Quality Enhancement Plan really build leadership opportunities for students, and we do that in the context of community engagement. One of the ETSU Elevate students who's working on a project this year with Visit Johnson City or Visit JC shared with me that she had been, actually I heard about it from a professional who said the ETSU Elevate student was in this meeting. So I asked the student about it, and she said, yeah, it was great. I don't really have a lot to contribute, but sitting there and listening to people have these discussions helps me think about what I need to do to best be prepared when I launch my career. Our ETSU Elevates 2024 event is the first event of Founders Week. It will be Monday night, October 7th. I really hope you can come out and join us. We'll open the doors at the Martin Center at 5 o'clock. Alternative breaks is an opportunity for students generally over spring break to go with a community of students and to be led by a faculty member to go and spend a week doing a deep dive in service and community engagement. Last year we had two groups go to Nashville. We had a group go to New Orleans and work with the Boys and Girls Club there. And I had the privilege of taking a group to Unicoi County, and it was awesome. We had so much fun. We learned so much about stewardship. We learned about how public lands are managed. We learned about how we take care of public lands and what some of the policy issues are that are involved there. We also just did our service plunge as part of preview. This year, students were invited to come to campus a day early. We had 100+ students do that. They volunteered and worked at 9 different sites here in the region. And then the last experience, and this is not exhaustive, but these are the ones I wanted to highlight, are our service Saturdays. You may have seen a sandwich board out there, which really I don't think was placed there. Maybe, Nathan, it was strategically, perhaps not. But service Saturdays happen once a month. Our volunteer ETSU students organize these. And we literally have dozens of students go into the community and do specific events on those days. Last year, the city of Johnson City gave us a proclamation for the number of volunteers who showed up for the Johnson City Beautification Day. And unbeknownst to us, but we recently learned that we received a commendation from State Representative Bud Holsley for distinguished service at Warriors Path State Park for work that students had done there. So we have some data. I'm going to show you that in a moment. But what I really want to do is to share a couple of stories with you about how students are connecting, how they are being influenced by these experiences, and how these experiences are helping them think about how they're going to contribute to the larger world. When we look at some of our student reflections, one of the things that we want to look at is, are students connecting the theory in their courses to actual application? And one student recently wrote in her critical reflection, being able to critically connect my observations to ideologies discussed in class and presenting them to the rest of the class was an exciting and rewarding experience for me. We also want students to look at these community-engaged learning experiences and consider how they're influencing their aspiration for a major, for an internship, for a career. I love the story that came from a community-engaged learning mathematics class, a statistics class. A student in that class who was a senior last year, the class project was working with Pfizer. They were working with Pfizer to model the cardiac functions that would be helpful through some clinical research. The student really found her passion, and she applied to do a PhD program. So this fall, she started a PhD program in statistics at NC State, and she is working as an industrial trainee and collaborating with the Duke Clinical Research Institute and projects related to cardiology, blood, and lungs. That is a direct connection to the experience she had here at ETSU. And finally, our third outcome that we want students to really be mindful about and we want to foster is helping them think about what I call how they want to be in the world. What is their contribution going to be in the world? And one of our students who is in special education, not special education, physical education major, she said, I want to be a teacher to help all students, not those who are just physically able. My role as a teacher is to prepare students to be better people, not just to be better athletes. You will see on this slide, these are our data from our rubric that we use to assess those 3 learning outcomes: connecting, influencing, and contributing. If you'll look at the bottom, you'll see that the goal from our that we hope to achieve at the end of the QEP is that at least 75% of students will be in the emerging or proficient levels at the end of 5 years, and that at least 50% are at that level, at the proficient level, at the end of 5 years. We have already exceeded those targets through these first 42 courses and 960 some students that were involved in community engaged learning classes this past year. So as we look at this year, we continue to work on the goals of the Quality Enhancement Plan. And these goals are endemic in that, and there's some new directions that we're taking on. We are working on the application for ETSU to be a community engaged designated university as recognized by the Carnegie Foundation. We had a kickoff event on Tuesday of this week. I had 42 people tell me they were coming. I had 35 tell me maybe. We had over 80 people come to the room, and it was a wonderful opportunity to share ideas and get feedback about the points of pride that they see with community engagement here at ETSU and places that we need to improve. We are working to establish a community engagement committee that would be campus-wide, and I have sent the provost a proposal for that. We want to see more students have these experiences when they first come through their general education, their 1,000 and 2,000 level courses. To that degree, we are prioritizing our community engaged learning grants for courses that are in that category. And then the fourth area that I'm really excited about is and I think y'all just heard the numbers from the College of Public Health about how many grant dollars they bring in, how much research is done, especially in this region. We want to further enhance and develop our faculty's opportunities and ability and support to be able to do community engaged research. And we have two opportunities for professional development, one in October and one in January that faculty will be invited to. And finally, in close, as the provost mentioned, our vision is that every student, at the end of this QEP, it will be impossible to escape a community-engaged learning experience as part of your academic program here at ETSU. My personal goal is to establish a long-term framework, a sustainable framework that's robust, that will support this work for many, many years. And I do want to thank Provost McCorkle for giving me the opportunity to do this work. I love doing this work. It is so much fun. It is wonderful to think about all the possibilities. Sometimes I have way too many ideas, and I am fortunate enough to work with people who will go along with that with me, and then we come back to what we know we can get done. But her commitment to community engagement is very personal, and it's evident every single day in the work that she does on our campus. And I want to thank President Nolan for his continuous support for these initiatives, for making certain that the priorities in our strategic plan, such as pursuing the Carnegie designation, establishing an Office of Community Engagement, are not just words on a page, but those are actionable items. And to this board, your vision for a high-quality, hands-on experience for all of our students is also what drives this work, and I want to thank you for your support as well. And with that, I have nothing else to share at this moment. Really hope you'll come and visit with us on Monday, October 7th, and be here for ETSU Elevate. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
Okay, great.
I just want to say thank you for everything you do, and the fact that you said your job was fun, that makes me happy.
Great. Now we'll receive an enrollment update from Dr. Sherlin.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today to provide an update on university enrollment. From fall 23 to fall 24, we're up 120 on the main campus. That's just under 1%. At the grad level, we experienced a slight drop after record enrollment in 23. The effects of the pandemic impacted recruitment and retention most heavily in the years 20 and 21. And we've been slowly and steadily rebuilding our undergraduate base year by year. In terms of demographics, we've seen significant increases in Asian and Latinx student populations, and the male to female participation gap has remained consistent over the course of that time period, which is consistent with national trends. The foundation of our student enrollment is based on the enrollment and persistence of our first-year class. We've long held an aspirational goal to achieve a class of 2,100 freshmen, and that aspiration has become a reality over the last 2 years. Since 2020, we've increased the freshman class size by 30%, and the academic quality of the class has not diminished. It's actually improved. Our expectation and the President's expectation is that 2,100 is the new normal moving forward. And I'm confident we're positioned to do it. And I don't say that lightly, because it's due to a decade of effort by our deans and our faculty in growing nationally ranked and recognized programs, from the leadership of this board in supporting our out-of-state tuition reset that has allowed us to compete regionally and nationally. It's due to the investments that we've made in and out of the classroom in the student experience. From our residence halls to our outdoor spaces to athletics to student life in this building. And it's also due to an outstanding and expanded marketing team. The data will show you that we are being noticed. Our message is landing across the state, the nation, and the globe. I'd also like to acknowledge, particularly this year, the work of our financial aid and scholarship teams and admissions teams in an extremely difficult year related to the FAFSA. Due to FAFSA delays, our teams had to work with students and families to move them through the aid process in less than half the time they would have in a typical year due to delays in the FAFSA release. Many students were not be able to be packaged or awarded until the academic year had completed in high school. So they weren't able to get the same level of support from their guidance counselors and faculty members in high school. They relied on our teams. And to hit 2138 with the headwinds we were facing this year is simply remarkable. And so much is due to the work of those units. So I'd like to take just a moment on one side to celebrate the fact that we have the first back-to-back classes of 2,100 in institutional history, and to also appreciate what ETSU is becoming, a destination institution when you look at this data. Our freshman class includes students from over 20 countries. These numbers are impressive, but what's most meaningful is that they represent thousands of students and families who've made the choice to come to ETSU in a very crowded marketplace. And those students who are traveling to be here, we have found that more and more of them want to live on campus and engage in the campus experience. In 2020, when we dropped our residential density to single bedrooms, we would never in our wildest dreams have imagined that our residential population would grow by 90% over the next 4 falls. We added 400 beds this fall in our current residential facilities, and we still began the year with 25 students in the Carnegie. Now, after the vacancies shook out, we're at 97% occupancy this fall, and we're going to need basically all of that capacity because we're going to move residents from Stone Hall into other residence halls this fall, at the end of this fall, because we're going to complete the renovation of that building in the spring and summer. We'll be converting Yoakley Hall, which is perfectly located in the center of the commons on our campus, by fall 26. And we're going to continue to offer support to our students year-round with a housing agent to help students and families navigate the off-campus market, which has really tightened up and changed significantly over the last few years. And on the horizon certainly is the identification of additional administrative space that we may need to convert, as well as new construction in housing. More students coming to campus, more students living on campus results in exploding engagement growth. This is the most active fall I've experienced in over 20 years at ETSU. 5 years ago, we would see 800 to 900 students participating in Preview. That's our college transition program for traditional freshmen, traditional transfer students. This year, we're at 1,900. Meal plan engagement is up. We're serving over 1,000 additional meals per day. And our daily visits to the CPA are up 25% year over year, and that's after having the largest freshman class in history. Like our enrollment, our retention rate has been steadily climbing since the pandemic, and 76% is the second highest rate achieved in the past decade. Our 6-year graduation rate has increased by 12% over the last 7 years, which puts us in the top quartile of institutions like us in terms of our size and scope across the country during that period. But we have significant ground to cover from here to hit goals of 85% for our freshman retention and 60% for graduation. So we're going to be moving forward with major initiatives this year that will include the development of a one-stop shop to provide integrated service for our financial aid, our bursar, and our registration units. We want students and families to feel like they can get integrated support and not have the experience that they may be being bounced from office to office as they're trying to navigate the financial aid process. We're going to be working on the development of a new Student Success Center with a special focus on supporting low-income and first-generation students, as called for in Committee for 125.2. We're going to be embedding support in and out of the classroom in the first 2 years, which are foundational to student success. Student success and hitting those targets is the next major mountain for the institution to climb. It's going to be challenging, it's going to take some time, and it's going to take resources. But I'm confident that we're going to get there because of the dedication, expertise, and commitment of the ETSU faculty and staff. The willingness of people on this campus, our staff and our faculty, to go beyond and do whatever is needed to serve our students and our families, I think it's our X factor, and it's our true competitive advantage. That spirit was fully on display this past month during Campus Move-In, which was led by Dr. Burchett and our housing team, and it's truly one of the special days of the ETSU year. Sean Morris, who's here with us today, and heads our campus grounds and landscape. We have the most beautiful campus, public campus in the state of Tennessee, thanks to Sean. And as you can imagine, he is extremely busy as we move toward opening. But he volunteered to lead our planning logistics for Campus Move-In for over 3,000 guests, in addition to his other responsibilities. I know personally that he arrived here for weeks, every day, before sunrise, and he stayed until dark. And he oversaw every aspect of the move-in day experience for our students and families. On that day, over 400 volunteers rushed out to cars, greeted our families and students, picked up their boxes, and moved them into their rooms. A friend of Dr. Nolan's, who moved his student in that day, was amazed by the level of support that he received, as well as the level of support that he saw our students and families receiving on campus. And he called to tell Dr. Nolan that the experience was perfect. We're in Sean's debt for that. Carrie Alvarado, our Director of Campus Recreation. Her staff has hundreds of student employees, And you can imagine the schedule of activities they put on during the first week. But she saw the need to assist with campus move-in. So she shut down her facility in the morning, arrived by daylight with all her team members, and took her post, not in a tent, but in the main traffic entrance as cars were coming into the university. She greeted every family for hours, told them where they need to go, answered their question. Thousands of people saw her smiling face as they entered the institution. Then, at the close of opening, she and her team went back to the CPA and they opened up the facility and they stayed into the night. And finally, Timothy Lewis, our Director of New Student and Family Programs, who's here as well. He partnered with Dr. Burchett to grow Move-In into a true campus experience. Preview leaders greet students and families as they get out of their cars. They walk with them into the residence halls and provide a warm handoff to the RA staff. Timothy planned a family event for students and families who were moving in the day of in Brooks Gym to welcome them and to have our university community put our arms around them. Brooks Gym was full with those families. It was a beautiful event. And as head of our first year experience courses, he worked with instructors over the first 2 weeks of school to identify students who were having problems, who were having issues with enrollment, making sure those instructors got them to those students to the offices they needed to go to. And that included walking students to those offices after class. If you'd allow, I'd like to read a note that came into the president's office about Timothy from a parent. It says, "We have a new student at ETSU, our oldest child. College life is new to us. We met Timothy Lewis, Director of New Students, at our campus tour, Big Buck Kickoff, and orientation. He said to email him with any questions, so we took him up on his offer. All this to say he's been so helpful. We've had questions along the way about schedules, tuition payments, parking, student employment, parent weekend. He's been so patient with us and so generous with his time. We really appreciate him. We truly feel like we can reach out to him and he's supportive. It also feels like he'll hold my hand so I can let go. Our student will be fine, and we know Timothy will be there as needed. I wanted to tell you how nice it's been to have Timothy in his role. Go Bucks." More than any other factor, it's this spirit that makes me confident about our future and also makes me honored to work here with these special people at this special time in our university's history. That concludes the enrollment report. We're going to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
Thank you.
You're going to have a hard time following that, Dr. Nolan.
Well, I'd now like to ask Dr. Nolan to provide his president's update to the board.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and I want to first start by taking a moment to outline what will be the frame for the presentation today. Much of this aligns with elements that are in the institution's strategic plan, but I will touch through my presentation on the following areas: access and success, provide an overview of progress towards our strategic initiatives, I'll talk a little bit about what's happening across the higher education landscape, focus some on community stewardship, and then give some highlights on campus engagement. We all know why we're here. We have a mission to improve the quality of life for the people of our region. But that mission has been exemplified in all the presentations today, from a presentation on community engagement embedded into our core curricula, in which our students are making a difference in the lives of others through their classes. The Elevate competition that Dr. McCracken mentioned, I hope that you all will have a chance to attend. In many respects, it's like Shark Tank on steroids, with students making pitches to have the opportunity to partner and volunteer with community organizations. But it's not our students volunteering with them, it's the community organizations wanting to be a part of the life of the institution. And it really, really is a powerful, powerful evening. You're aware of your strategic planning framework. Just a picture of those 2,138 students who comprise the freshman class. Second largest freshman class in the history of the university. Second largest freshman class in the history of the university in the face of FAFSA headwinds that prevented students from being able to know their financial aid packages until well after the close of their senior year of high school. You can see enrollments up across the board, and you can see the key areas from an undergraduate perspective as well as a graduate perspective that are the largest programs from an enrollment lens on campus. Dr. Sherlin talked a little bit about the increase in retention rates. We've rebounded from the COVID downturn, but if you use the THEC data, you pick up about 5 points. So this has started ETSU, return at ETSU, but we know a number of our students transfer to other institutions, just as we're the recipient of transfer students from other institutions as well. So every year there's about a 5% bump on the THEC data. So if that is the case this year as well as last, then our retention rate overall is about 81%. Graduation rate is up year over year, but we know we have gaps across demographic groups, and the interventions that Dr. Sherlin outlined are all being put in place to ensure that we drive these gaps in a different direction than they've been historically. And it's not just at our university. Across underserved populations, low-income populations, there are outcomes with respect to graduation that are disparate, but we'd like to be one of the institutions in the state of Tennessee that ameliorates that disparity. I want to talk a little bit about strategic initiatives, and we had an opportunity here recently to give you a lot of detail on strategic plans and what we've accomplished, but rather than putting it in multiple slides of bullets, we tried to capture it in a couple quick charts. So on the things that this board identified for us to prioritize in a 5-year time period, you see that we've accomplished about half of that thus far. But we've also accomplished a pretty decent amount of the things that you wanted us to achieve in a 5 to 10-year time period. And what we'll do at each board meeting moving forward is to provide you with examples in detail, but also this checkup on where are we, what progress have we made, what have we accomplished, what have we not accomplished, and what do we need to adjust moving forward. But this work isn't just something that's underway now. It's work that was outlined in the strategic plan, and it's work that we've shared with you in the past. 2 years ago, we brought an outside consulting group here onto campus to give us an assessment of initiatives that needed to be implemented to achieve the strategic plan that you identified for the board. So we declared that we would look at our budget model, we'd adjust our ERP system, we'd restructure class and comp, we'd undergo a review of academic portfolio, we'd put in place a new strategic enrollment management plan, we'd address our research administration, and we'd transform housing. These are all items that trace their roots back to that plan and that engagement with Huron, and they're areas that we've been focusing attention for the better part of 2 years. And we want to remind you that this is a multi-year time frame. Christy in her slides earlier today talked about budget model review. That work is going to take the better part of a year and a half. The Voyager journey is a journey we started in '24, but the timelines that our consultants outlined for us said we wouldn't be finished until '25. The work on class and comp is going to take time. So I'm showing this to you to give you a sense of the work that your staff has been engaged in, as well as deliverables that we'll provide to you and to the campus by the timeframes outlined on this chart. I thank the board for approving earlier today the Strategic Facilities Master Plan. From here, that will then go on to the state for the state's approval, and finally to the Building Commission. So just wanted to give you a glimpse that our work here is part of a broader process of approval. And once it is approved, we'll report back to the board that the Building Commission affirmed the vision you've set for the facilities future of the institution. So that's where your campus is at this moment in time. Our budgets are balanced. We're going to make investments in faculty and staff. Our retention rates are up. Our graduation rates are up. We have the second largest freshman class in the history of the university. We're serving 1,000 more meals per day than we did last year. We have 300 plus more students in the residence halls than we did last year. Your institution is on pretty solid footing. Well, what's the footing look like for other institutions across the country? Well, here's the things that they're looking at, and I won't dwell in on all of these, but the most important aspect for most universities in the nation is declining enrollment and how they then protect and promote affordability and value in the face of declining enrollments. We all know the high school rates in the state of Tennessee have declined, and we know that that decline is more precipitous in rural communities such as Northeast Tennessee. That's why we started a P20 initiative to change the college-going rates. But it's more than just work here, because our students are part of a national culture around college. And we've talked some with you about this, but I think it's really important that we look at what students are thinking and feeling from a research perspective and what the literature notes. And what it notes is that most students want to go to school to get a job to make more money. They want to get a better job or promotion. They want to have job security, specific training or career. Over and over and over again, what students are looking for as they're making college decisions is to find degrees and majors that put them in a position to realize a return on investment. But it's not just high school students that we're focusing on as we develop our strategic enrollment management plan. There's non-traditional students that we're trying to bring back in, and what are they focused on? On the job training. But we know there's a lot that plays into college choice, and EAB just this past year surveyed thousands of students, and these were the top criteria that the freshman class of 2024 was considering when making their decision on where to go to school. Number one thing's location. Well, what's a strategic asset of this institution? Our location, both the beauty as well as proximity to multiple states. Financial aid offered, affordable tuition, but look at number 4, beautiful campus. So the elements that students nationally are saying are important to them as they make their college choice decisions are things that this board by design put into its strategic plan: financial aid, tuition, campus beautification, academic facilities, rankings, scholarships. So this is the type of data that Dr. Sherlin and his staff are looking at with frequency as they're recruiting students and building out that strategic enrollment management plan. But we know that expectations for students have shifted post-COVID. People want things in easy, online, accessible formats. They want flexible schedules. And they want the opportunity to go back and look at in a recorded manner what they could have paid attention to in class. And I've seen this firsthand with my son, who's a sophomore in college, who goes back at night and re-watches lectures because he may or may not have missed something. How did we get the technology to do that? We put lecture capture technology in our classrooms in COVID. So for all of the things that we look back and think COVID was terrible, the technology that Dr. King and her staff built in to the classroom environment has enhanced learning outcomes long after the pandemic has come and gone. But in many respects, the pandemic's still with us. This year's college freshmen were 9th graders in high school, and we know the learning loss that those students experienced from time away. And we see that when you ask students whether or not they feel prepared for college, first-generation students do not feel well prepared for college. Underrepresented students do not feel that they're prepared for college. So what do they want when they come? Enhanced advising, enhanced tutoring, enhanced academic support. But they also want a sense of safety, a sense of belonging, and a sense of place. So this is one of the reasons why we have counseling service and mental health as part of our strategic plan. And when Dr. Sherlin talks about a one-stop shop as well as a comprehensive student success center, all of these are elements that will comprise that comprehensive student success center. But we know the cost is important. That's why we've looked to try to maintain costs at an affordable level here. But when you ask students whether or not they think college is worth the cost, this is something we've got to keep front and center. Because many students, a third, don't feel that college is worth the cost. So we have to keep that in front and center as we look at decisions around affordability at the university. Now, this one for me is kind of interesting because you see the significant growth, but adjusting for inflation, what's happened to price and tuition and fees post-pandemic? It's actually less now than it was pre-pandemic. But this is something that the data doesn't altogether align with what students perceive to be reality. And you see the same thing here, all in adjusting for inflation. It actually costs less to go to school than it did before the pandemic, but that's not the impression of students and families. And it's also not the impression of ranking agencies who state that the financial health of many institutions across the country is failing. But you see that failing every time you pick up the newspaper. I look at every morning the Chronicle of Higher Ed and Inside Higher Education. And every single morning when I read those journals online, there's a story of institutions closing, cutting programs, or laying off faculty. So here's 4 institutions that are closing programs, terminating faculty, eliminating at West Virginia University more than 150 faculty positions. But the same at Penn State, same at Emerson, St. Cloud, Lindenwood, Keystone. University of North Carolina, Asheville, 50 minutes away, has a $6 million budget deficit and is closing academic programs. That's just on the other side of the mountain. Valparaiso University, where one of the members of your board and I have a shared experience from our childhood, is cutting programs, cutting faculty, and cutting programs at the heart of the liberal arts. In Western Illinois and Little Frostburg State, once again. So we're in a different spot. And we're in a different spot because of this board. This board has pushed us to be judicious in our use of resources. This board has pushed us to build our reserves. Prior to the advent of this board, we had less than $10 million in reserves. When we bring the budget to you in November for approval, that number will be north of 28. We're prepared for a rainy day. We've made prudent investments in the institution in ways that will yield enrollment. Why are we beautifying the campus? Because that's one of the top 4 categories that students are looking for when they make their college choice decisions. So sometimes we look at numbers, and as a colleague of mine says, how do they do that? Well, we did it with planning, we did it with strategy, we did it with execution, but most importantly, we did it with people. The greatest plans in the world fail without the people to execute. And Dr. Sherlin spotlighted 3, but I'd like to spotlight 2 more. One's Dr. Heather Levesque for the work that she has done to literally hold the hands of students from the moment they apply to the moment they enroll to the moment that they get past the census date and are moving through classes. The other is Jess Vodden. If you look at how we marketed this institution strategically, not logos, but strategic marketing, putting digital fences around communities and bombarding them with information about the university, having the wherewithal and the vision to do some things that some might say were crazy, like put 40,000 pizza boxes into the homes of people in Middle Tennessee so that when they ordered pizza from whatever the vendor was there, it came in an ETSU box, a reminder of what happens outside of Metro Davidson. So big and small, people of what has led this. But I also want to talk about Sean. When you walk across this campus, our grounds are beautiful. And I've heard parents say time and time again, if they take this good a care of the grass, they're going to take good care of my kids. He and his team not only have focused on grounds, but where were they on move-in day? Out helping students move in. So it's the people that made these outcomes possible, and that's all part of our work at Community Stewardship. I made the pitch for you to attend the pitch that is ETSU Elevates, and here you can see the energy from the winner of that competition last year at the Martin Center. But now I want to step away from higher education and paint a little bit of a national economic landscape, because what we do here is not detached from what's happening across the country. And the Federal Reserve this past year surveyed more than 16,600 households across the country, asking them about the state of their economy. And what you see is most people feel that they're not doing as well now as they were a few years ago. Makes sense. We had a pandemic. We're still recovering from it. But look at the bottom, figure 2. Those who feel the most sound in their finances are those with college degrees. Those who feel the least stable in their finances are those with less than a high school degree. So for me, what we're doing to raise educational attainment levels across the region, to focus on P20, isn't just about getting kids to come to ETSU. It's about changing the face of the region and the economic stability of the people who call this region home. And what are Americans struggling with right now? Basic living expenses. And what are people really struggling with in our region? Housing. So as we look at the housing market, that housing market not only impacts our students, but it impacts our faculty and our staff. In 2021, the average price of a home in Johnson City was $299,000. Now that same home is $379,000. So as we're recruiting people to move here and join the ETSU community, we've got to be mindful of this. And once again, for me, that all goes back to the drive on salary. But these figures are interconnected, and there's more that interconnects them. So when the Federal Reserve surveyed people about the benefits of education, you see that the more advanced your degrees are, the more you feel that you got a good return on that investment. But that return on the investment is more than just simply earnings. That return on the investment is ensuring that we're preparing people to move into communities and make a difference in those communities. And we know the return on the investment. Individuals with a bachelor's degree on average, and this isn't old folks like me, this is 23 to 34-year-olds with a bachelor's degree. Average earnings potential, $59,000. Those with only a high school degree, $36,000. So that $23,000 premium is the immediate premium, not a long-term premium later in life. Dr. Sherlin shared with you information on engagement across campus. This is another picture from preview, but the best picture of engagement on campus is going to be tomorrow. And I hope that you all have an opportunity to join us as the #2 football program in the nation, North Dakota State, comes to Johnson City, comes to Central Appalachia, and takes on our team. I also hope that you have an opportunity to be engaged with us in Founders Week. I've always wanted to make Founders Week something that was meaningful, something that was impactful, and something that was just more than me reminding everyone that we were founded on October 10th, 1911, with a mission to improve the quality of life for the people of the region. So this year, we're breathing that mission to life. The Buck Stuff the Bus initiative is an effort by units across campus to provide school supplies to at-risk schools across the region. So stuffing the bus is all of the units across campus rolling up their sleeves and contributing school supplies that we'll then distribute across Northeast Tennessee. You see the Elevates competition. ETSU Remembers on the 8th is a day in which we as an institution pause and remember those members of the faculty and staff who've passed away over the prior year. We'll have a presidential lecture by Fred Saussman, who's here in the back of the room, on the life of Bergen Dossett. Then on October the 10th and 11th, we'll move through a series of activities, with finally on the 11th, me trying to give 130 slides in about 40 minutes, and then we wrap the week up with a football game. But I hope that you can be a part of these Founders Week's activity. You're going to have a chance in a little bit to go out on this site where Mr. Ross is here saying something to Trent, and I don't know what it is, but Jeremy looks very serious at the moment, and I can't see Trent's face, but I bet he looks somewhat concerned. But we're going to have a chance to go out and sign a beam to mark your moment and impact on the history of this institution for building that's coming up and out of the ground. But before we depart from this room and have a chance to put that mark on history, are there any questions you have for me about your institution as we wrap up the fall quarterly board meeting of our Board of Trustees? Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, President Nolan. Okay, since there is no need for the board to convene an executive session today, I would ask Governor Ramsey for a motion to adjourn the Board of Trustees.
I move we adjourn.
Got a second? Second. We stand adjourned.